What happens when you give an ordinary person absolute power over another? Do they remain fair, just, and kind, or does something inside them shift, awakening a darker side they never knew existed? Throughout history, we've seen how positions of authority shape human behavior, from dictators ruling nations to managers abusing their employees. The belief that some people are inherently superior while others are meant to be controlled is a dangerous illusion. And nowhere was this illusion more clearly exposed than in the Stanford Prison Experiment. It was meant to be a simple psychology study, a simulation. But in just 6 days, it spiraled into something far more disturbing. A group of young college students, all mentally healthy, stepped into a fake prison, some as guards, others as prisoners. What followed was a chilling transformation that revealed just how fragile our morals can be when placed in a system of power and submission. It started as a simple recruitment ad in the newspaper. Philip Zimbardo, a psychologist at Stanford University, was looking for volunteers for a prison experiment. Participants would be paid $15 per day to spend 2 weeks in a simulated prison environment. 24 young men were selected, all of them psychologically stable. They were randomly divided into 2 groups, guards and prisoners. There were no special requirements, just the luck of the draw. The guards were given khaki uniforms, mirrored sunglasses, and wooden batons, not to be used for violence, but as symbols of authority. The prisoners, on the other hand, were stripped of their identities. They wore loose smocks, no underwear, and were referred to only by numbers. Then, reality blurred. Day 1. The arrests. To make the experience more realistic, Zimbardo arranged for the prisoners to be arrested at their homes. Without warning, real police officers showed up, handcuffed them, and dragged them into squad cars as confused neighbors watched. They were taken to the mock prison, blindfolded, and subjected to the dehumanizing intake process, strip searches, delousing, and uniform assignment. Any sense of individuality was erased. At first, the prisoners laughed, treating it as a joke. The guards, too, were unsure how seriously to take their roles. But that hesitation wouldn't last long. Day 2. The power struggle. The prisoners soon realized they weren't in control. Some rebelled, barricading themselves in their cells, refusing to follow orders. The guards responded with brutality. They blasted fire extinguishers at the prisoners, forcing them out. The ringleaders were dragged to solitary confinement, while the rest were made to do humiliating tasks, push-ups, jumping jacks, and other meaningless exercises, all while being verbally abused. This was no longer an experiment. The guards were enjoying their power. Day 3, the psychological breakdown. Something changed in the prisoners. Some stopped resisting altogether, falling into submission. Others broke down emotionally, sobbing uncontrollably, begging to be released. One prisoner, number 8612, couldn't take it anymore. He started screaming, crying, saying he couldn't tell what was real and what wasn't. Zimbardo let him go, but only after convincing him he was weak for quitting. The guards, meanwhile, were only getting worse. They implemented a privilege system, rewarding those who obeyed and punishing the defiant. Some prisoners were forced to clean toilets with their bare hands. Others had their bedding taken away and were made to sleep on the cold concrete floor. And yet the guards were still normal college students, just like their victims. Day 5, a disturbing transformation. By now, even Zimbardo himself had lost perspective. He was no longer a neutral observer. He had become the prison warden. The abuse escalated. Guards forced prisoners to simulate sexual acts, stripping them of the last shred of dignity they had left. When a visiting priest came to speak with the prisoners, he didn't ask about the experiment. He asked how they were going to get out on parole, as if this were a real prison. That's how deep the illusion had sunk. Day 6. The experiment ends in horror. The experiment was supposed to last 2 weeks, but it was cut short after just 6 days. Not because Zimbardo had realized the damage he was causing, but because someone from the outside stepped in. Christina Maslach, a graduate student, came to observe. What she saw horrified her. Prisoners in distress, guards laughing as they tortured them, and Zimbardo, completely blind to the harm being done. She confronted him. "You have to stop this, now." It was only then that Zimbardo snapped out of it. The next morning, the experiment was shut down. The prisoners were freed, and the guards returned to their normal lives. But the scars remained. When the participants were later interviewed, both the guards and prisoners admitted how quickly they lost themselves in their roles. The guards had no prior history of cruelty, but in the right environment, with the right power structure, they became oppressors. The prisoners, who were just as free as the guards before the study, began to believe they were truly powerless. The Stanford Prison Experiment isn't just about what happened in that basement. It's about what happens in the real world every day, in workplaces, in police forces, in the military, in governments. When people believe they have power over others, many begin to abuse it. It's the same mentality that leads to corrupt leadership, police brutality, and oppressive regimes. The illusion of superiority makes some people believe they are meant to control, while others exist to serve. But that illusion can break if we recognize it for what it is. So the next time you see someone abusing their power, ask yourself, are they really in control, or have they simply fallen into a role, just like the guards in Stanford's fake prison? There are real-life examples of people becoming trapped by their temporary roles. In 2008, the world experienced a financial crisis triggered by risky lending practices and financial products created by companies like Lehman Brothers. These practices were not only disastrous for the global economy, but also led to millions of people losing their homes, savings, and jobs. Richard Fuld, the CEO of Lehman Brothers, was widely criticized for his role in the firm's collapse. Despite the immense damage caused by his leadership, Fuld walked away with millions in bonuses and minimal legal consequences. On the other hand, millions of ordinary citizens, like those in working-class neighborhoods, were foreclosed upon, their lives shattered by the actions of executives like him. Fuld's actions show how executives in positions of power, with their inflated sense of superiority, are often able to escape consequences, while those at the bottom are left to bear the brunt. This dynamic of the rich believing they are entitled to their wealth and power has led to long-standing resentment and divisions between the elite and the common person. During British colonial rule, Lord Curzon, the British Viceroy of India, exhibited an extreme sense of superiority over the Indian people. One notable incident was the partition of Bengal in 1905, which Curzon justified by claiming that the region's different communities could not peacefully coexist under Indian rule. This decision, driven by imperial arrogance, deepened divisions and led to significant unrest among the local population. The British officials, such as Winston Churchill, often viewed the Indian population as inferior, subjecting them to harsh treatment, including economic exploitation and lack of rights. The policies of British leaders during this period highlight how colonial powers used their position of superiority to treat the people of the colonized nations as subhuman and incapable of ruling themselves. And where there is oppression, there are people rising up against it. Martin Luther King Jr. is perhaps the most iconic figure in the fight against racial inequality in the United States. During the 1950s and 1960s, King led nonviolent protests against racial segregation and discrimination. His leadership in events like the Montgomery bus boycott and the March on Washington was instrumental in the passing of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. King's famous "I Have a Dream" speech emphasized his belief in equality for all people, regardless of race, and called for a world where people would be judged by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. His dedication to nonviolent resistance and moral leadership challenged the systemic racism entrenched in American society. Rosa Parks is another central figure in the fight for racial equality in America. In 1955, Parks refused to give up her seat to a white man on a segregated bus in Montgomery, Alabama, an act of defiance that sparked the Montgomery bus boycott. Parks's simple act of resistance against the injustice of segregation was pivotal in the civil rights movement, and her actions inspired Martin Luther King Jr. and many others to take a stand against racial discrimination. Parks became a symbol of the power of peaceful protest and was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 1996 for her role in advancing civil rights. In the realm of spiritualism, we are taught that each soul is inherently unique, vibrant, and resonating at its own frequency. Yet, at the same time, we are all interconnected. Our souls work together, learning, growing, and loving one another, even across lifetimes. This interconnectedness is the essence of our shared journey. We are not superior or inferior to each other, but each of us plays a vital part in the cosmic dance of existence. In the spiritual world, there is no hierarchy. Even those who may appear to be great are not exempt from the universal law of humility. As the Bible reminds us, "Blessed are the humble, for they shall inherit the kingdom of heaven." This teaching transcends religious boundaries and reflects the truth of spiritual existence. No matter how high one may rise, the greatest of us remain humble, for the true nature of existence is equality, balance, and love. However, in the material world, human nature often gives rise to the creation of hierarchies and the notion of superiority. From the very beginning, we are taught to assign value to people based on external circumstances like wealth, status, and power. In religious systems, this often manifests as the creation of a chosen few who are thought to possess greater spiritual insight or closeness to the divine. But this is a misunderstanding of the deeper spiritual truth. As spiritual beings, we must remember that we are here on earth to play a role. This role may be prearranged and discussed with our spiritual guides before we incarnate. Some of us come to facilitate important events, while others may come to play pivotal roles in the lives of others. Perhaps one person is born to challenge, while another is born to offer love and healing. We take on these roles not because they define who we are, but because they help the entire soul group to grow, learn, and evolve. When someone believes they are superior to you, whether based on their job title, wealth, or social status. Remember, this is simply their role in this earthly experience. Smile. And remember that their soul is no different than yours. They may be playing a role that seems more powerful in the physical world, but this doesn't alter the truth that at the soul level, we are all equal. Even in moments when others may treat you as less, know this: you are enough just as you are. You do not need external validation to affirm your worth. Your spiritual essence, your true self, is already whole, complete, and connected to the divine source. The same applies when someone climbs to a powerful position. When a person gains power and control, if they are enlightened, they will always remember that they are no more important or superior than the very people they govern. Many dictators throughout history, however, have forgotten this truth. They became consumed by their power and lost sight of their spiritual essence, believing that their role in this life somehow made them better than others. This led to suffering, not only for those they oppressed, but also for themselves, as they became lost in the illusion of their own superiority. This is why spiritual wisdom is vital for those who rise to positions of leadership, both in the political and spiritual realms. A leader, to be truly effective, must also be a spiritual guide, someone who understands the impermanence of power and the equality of all souls. A spiritually enlightened leader will always see themselves as one with the people they serve, recognizing the illusion of hierarchy and acting from a place of love, compassion, and humility. As spiritual teachings like the Buddhist Sutra remind us, attachment leads to suffering. Everything in this world is an illusion. The roles we play in this life are fleeting. The titles we carry are impermanent. We are not our job titles, our possessions, or even our relationships. These are just roles we take on for a short while in the grand play of existence. True freedom comes from realizing this, remembering that you are not your role. You are the infinite, eternal soul beneath it all, and this understanding will give you peace. So, when life feels heavy, or when others seem to dismiss you, step back and see the situation from a higher perspective. Imagine you are watching yourself and others from the perspective of your higher self, the eternal soul that cannot be shaken by external circumstances. This clarity will allow you to act with wisdom, making decisions that align with your true identity. Engage in spiritual practices, read spiritual texts, and nurture your inner self so that you can remember who you truly are, an equal, radiant soul on a path of growth and evolution. In this way, we navigate the world without becoming too attached to the roles we play. We are here to learn, to serve, and to love, not to claim superiority or be driven by ego. The more we remember our true nature, the more we can live with compassion, kindness, and wisdom, uplifting both ourselves and others along the way.